Hello everyone, welcome to Burdett Automotive Test Drives. I'm Gregory Burdett. Today we're taking out the 2015 Audi S8 courtesy of Royal Oak Audi in Calgary, Alberta. Now it's always a pleasure to get out in these high performance luxury flagship vehicles. In the S8 we've got the 4-liter V8 putting out 520 horsepower, 480 pound-feet of torque through twin turbos. Now, one thing I'll note right away about this engine is they've mapped the throttle pedal really nicely. So that first little range of play on the pedal doesn't call in a lot of boost, which is great if you're just kind of motoring around in traffic in the city and you don't need that boost. But they've got it kind of perfectly mapped so that kind of mid-press on the throttle pedal, you start to engage your turbos. And then the turbo buildup is nice and smooth, and the power delivery is smooth. So with the A8, we've got a bunch of engine choices, starting with basically your non-S8 A8. So you can have the 3-liter supercharged V6, 333 horsepower. You get your 3-liter TDI engine, so your turbo diesel engine, and that's 240 horsepower but 429 pound-feet of torque. And then moving into the 4 liters, you can have the 4-liter detuned version of this engine, and that's putting out 428 horsepower. And then, of course, you can have the S8 with that 520 horsepower figure. The A8 also comes in a long wheelbase version, the A8L. Same engine options in that one. And the A8 is also available with a W12 engine. And what's interesting about Audi's engine is because it's essentially two V6 engines mated at the crankshaft, it means that the engine is not the length that a normal V12 would be. So the engine's more compact. And that engine leaves room for an all-wheel drive system in the vehicle. Most V12s don't have all-wheel drive options because that V12 engine takes up a lot of space. Now with the S8, it's kind of hallmarked here by the aluminum side mirrors. We have a black exterior color on the paint here, so the contrast is very nice. Also the chrome or aluminum belt line trim that comes around the windows as well. As well with the S8, we keep the traditional oval tailpipes. The A8 gets an updated kind of facelift back there on the tailpipes. Inside the cabin, we've got beautiful seats in this S8. We've got 22-way adjustable seats. These seats have massage as well up the back. And all of these settings are accessed through your MMI. There's a little wheel on the side of the seat here that accesses all those main functions. So by clicking up on it, I can pull up the seat parameters here. So I've got the thigh support, the lumbar and the thighs on the side, the bolsters, of course the back of the seat. Then you've got the shoulders, so I can curl the shoulders forward, backwards. The seat belt height, I can adjust that. And of course we have the massage feature, so we have wave, pulse, stretch, lumbar, and shoulder. And these are actually quite nice. I'll actually go into it and let's do the stretch and see what that's like. Then you can adjust the intensity, so to full-on intensity. As with all the Audis that I take out, in terms of the driver select options, I usually keep it in dynamic, and I've got the S8 in dynamic right now. I will mention though that the option for comfort on the S8 is quite nice. So we'll just give it a moment till I'll kick in here. And now that adaptive air suspension is a high quality suspension, and right now it's smoothed out a lot of the road for me. The steering is still very nice even in comfort mode. And part of the advantage of the steering on the S8 is that it's a standard dynamic steering where it will increase and decrease the speed of the steering based on the speed that the car is traveling. Now the S8 has the sport differential included in this package, and what that does is it's an electromechanical system that transfers torque between the rear wheels, and it's instantly noticeable when you go into a curve at almost any speed. So what's going to happen is it'll either increase or add power to the outside tire because it's gripping more, Let's do a little full acceleration here as we do an on-ramp. There we go. Good smooth power. The shifts are so smooth in this. There's no urgency about it, which is nice because it's not a race car, it's a luxury performance car. So nice shifts. Back to the differential though. Sometimes a lot of the companies, like the Pioneers, McLaren, they like to make the inside rear slow down a bit so it brakes and pulls the car around. But cool system. Again, very noticeable on this S8. After a while, you probably will forget that it's there as you get used to it. But definitely going from a car that doesn't have a sport differential to one that does, huge immediate difference. On all of the A8s, including the S8 and the W12, we have the ZF 8-speed HP, so the high-performance transmission. And ZF have been making great transmissions for a long time, and this one's no different. So I can instantly use the paddle shift to gear down. Very smooth car. Those shifts were actually very smooth. One of the things you get with the dual clutch system is kind of a very abrupt, kind of a clunky shift between shifts, partly because it is so quick. And one of the advantages is to staying with a standard kind of Tiptronic system is they usually have a smooth gear change. You can tune them to be very fast, and you can make them almost as fast as a dual clutch. The technology is that good. But just by nature being natively a Tiptronic system or a kind of a more normal automatic transmission, the shifts are smooth. And when you're driving a big flagship vehicle like this, you want smooth shifts. You don't want to be jarred all over the place. So that's why they tend to keep those Tiptronic systems in some of the higher horsepowered luxury cars. The R7, for instance, uses Tiptronic, not a DCT transmission. On this S8, we have the optional Bang & Olufsen stereo system. That's a $7,000 feature, but what you get is a 1,400 watt 19 speaker system. Now, with the radio or with other kind of low bit rate media interfaces, you're not going to get the full experience of this system. With CDs or DVDs, if you have, for instance, a rear entertainment system back there, you're watching movies in this car, you have some high bit rate media, and the sound is actually quite spectacular through this system. I was a little bit harsh on this system in comparing it to the system in the A3. That has a 705 watt 14 speaker system. It's actually pretty good. It's powerful and has great fidelity. This one though, I don't think I was using a media with a high enough bitrate to really utilize all of its functionality. Popped a CD in there now, and it's absolutely phenomenal. So kudos to the Bang & Olufsen system in this car. 1,400 watts. It's got some power. This S8 has so many cool tech features in the A8 line in general. So let's go through a few of those things. We'll start with stuff that's kind of hooked up to the MMI. So we've got Bluetooth speakers for each passenger in the vehicle, just up in the headliner here. The MMI itself has been updated quite recently, 2013, to include faster software, so everything is processed more quickly, and it was already pretty fast to begin with. The vehicle itself can become its own cell phone, so you can actually put a SIM card in the car and start using it as a cell phone and turn it into a hotspot. So now all the other passengers can hook their wireless devices up to the car's hotspot and use their devices off of the cars. That's pretty handy, pretty cool. Going through tech, so the navigation system in this car is good. In Canada, we don't have access to Google Earth. The rest of the world, for the most part, does. But what's really interesting about the S8 to the A8 is that the GPS in the navigation system is hooked into a lot of the car's features. So, for instance, the navigation information is sent to the headlights, it's sent to the transmission, it's sent to pre-safe and a bunch of other driving aids on the vehicle. And what that achieves is it lets the car know, for instance, that there's a curve coming up. And as the vehicle approaches the curve, the headlights will actually turn and illuminate the curve before you actually get there. So you will not have started input in the steering wheel. You'll still be going dead straight, but the headlights will start to curve into the turn for you. And also with the transmission, being a full auto, an 8-speed auto with paddle shifts, the GPS will actually tell the transmission to select an appropriate gear for the train coming up. All of those things are really cool advancements in automotive technology, and the A8 has those, which is really cool. Some cool things going on with the engine in terms of efficiency. So first of all, these direct injected engines are very fuel efficient. The turbocharging also makes them fuel efficient while releasing a bunch of power. Now, the V8, for instance, in this one can reduce its cylinders to 4 cylinders, so it would operate as a V4 when you don't need all 8 cylinders. And Audi claims that if you're cruising at 120 kilometers an hour, it will shut down to 4 cylinders, and it will save you 10% fuel consumption. And that's good because you don't need those extra cylinders. And what's even more important is you never know that the system is active. What Audi's done to eliminate some of the vibrations that occur when you shut down those 4 cylinders is they've introduced 2 things. One, we've got the acoustic inside the cabin noise cancellation system. That's both for road noise and for other ambient noises, including vibration from the engine. And through the speakers, it's going to broadcast a signal or a sound wave that is basically 100 degrees opposite to the sound wave that the vibrations and exterior noises are creating. And those sound waves collide and neutralize each other. They've taken that same principle and applied it to the engine mounts. So the engine mounts in the vehicle are little electromagnetic mounts that float on top of each other, kind of like this. And the electromagnetic signal inside those mounts, again, is meant to counter the vibration coming from the engine. So it neutralizes the actual physical vibration from the engine when it shuts down to 4 cylinders. And Audi has had the capability of showing this to journalists in a kind of a static setting where they could turn the system on and off at will, and journalists were floored by the difference. And now with the system in all road cars being non-toggable, it's impossible to tell when the engine is shut down to those 4 cylinders. They've done such a good job of minimizing that vibration. So that's kind of a really nice technology to see on these cars these days. Being their flagship vehicle, the A8 has or receives a lot of technology first that Audi has just recently developed. So for instance, the A8 and the S8 that we're driving now has an all-LED headlight system. And each basically node of LEDs has 25 little nodes inside of it. And the system can turn on and off all those little individual LED nodes within each cluster to create a very precise pattern of light on the road. And it's so precise and so intelligent that it's able to shine light everywhere except for on the car in front of you or a car coming in the oncoming traffic lane. Taking that a step further, the A8 has night vision. And what it's doing is it's letting you see vehicles, etc., but also pedestrians. And the system will actually recognize and highlight pedestrians and give you warnings as a driver if it thinks that you're going to hit a pedestrian. The lights will as well, they'll briefly blink, so flash, boom, 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 the headlights, to illuminate the pedestrian. And it won't be just like a broadband flash, it'll be just those little LED nodes that are necessary to illuminate the pedestrian. So it calls that pedestrian to your attention so that you know he or she is there. It's just absolutely fantastic technology that they're coming up with. They have a lab in Germany, a light lab, where all they do is study ways to incorporate the beautiful functionality of LED technology, as well as laser lighting technology, which is something new that they've developed. So just fabulous, fabulous things that they've been able to bring out. And they are able to make their actual headlight clusters look sensational. So the headlight cluster on this S8 is just breathtaking to look at. And of course the taillights. And Audi's been a leader in that traditionally as well. They were the first ones to bring out the LED daytime running lights to begin with. So definitely a market leader in terms of lighting, and they continue to lead the way in that. And of course the A8, the S8 have the most advanced systems on the market in that regard. The car will also maintain the lane for you. So if you are wandering out of your lane, it'll just gently steer the car back into your lane. So it did that for me there. It's actually, the car's actually driving itself. The car's driving itself. Okay, I did this on the S350. And with the S350, you could only drive like this for 10 seconds before the car freaked out on you, okay? I'm going to see how long I can drive like this. So it's steering, it's not braking. Some of the systems would actually brake to get the car back where you want, but this one is actually doing electromechanical steering. So the computer is actually controlling it. It sees the yellow line, sees the dots. I'm going 130 kilometers an hour here in Alberta, and we're passing the 30-second mark. This is cool. I actually didn't know that it would do this. So in theory, I can set the cruise control, which I can do now. Let's do that. Do not try this at home, people. So I'm going to set to, I'll steer this curve because it's kind of a heavy curve. And again, with the Mercedes, it'll actually deactivate this function after 10 seconds. So it'll only do lane assist for 10 seconds at a time. Okay, so some straight road. We have cruise on. Just picked up the yellow line. My foot's off the brake, the gas. Right now I am autonomous driving. Now Audi, this brings me back to a point about Audi. They are one of the leaders in autonomous driving. They have famously that RS7 that they put around a racetrack in Germany without a driver. And the vehicle is actually able to set faster lap times than a driver in that same car. It's a good little ramp coming up here where we can experiment with some cornering. This car is just so agile, and the steering is absolutely perfect. Perfect. Steering on this is probably the biggest thing you notice when you're kind of weaving in and out of traffic. It's just perfect steering. Probably the best steering of any of the Audis that I've driven. So a little bit of trail braking into this corner, loading up that front right tire. That front right tire does not care because this car is so light. It's like not even putting any pressure on that. It's a V8, not a W12, so there's not that much weight. Got some summers. These are summer tires on here. Okay, so with the Sport Adaptive Air Suspension on this, that was excellent handling. That was better handling than with the A4 through that corner. A4 had summer tires as well. The A4 bounced around a little bit more, so its rebound and dampening was a little bit looser. This one was very tight through that corner. Same bumps, almost no movement. I get goosebumps driving machinery that's this well put together, and after that curve I've got goosebumps. Because even with the throttle play, it's a turbo, but at speed I had exquisite control over the power from the engine. And sometimes with turbos you get the problem of it unspooling on you, and how do you drive it. So this one just does a great job of spooling up those turbos and maintaining control over those turbos. When you're driving a flagship car, you want to come away from the experience with the notion that what you've just driven is the best. And it shouldn't be just the best for that manufacturer. It should be the best of what's out there. Otherwise, it's a failed flagship. And from basically kilometer number 1, as soon as I got into this car and started driving it, I had the impression that this car was special. And now after 100K of driving it, slow speed, high speed, windy roads, straight roads, you really do get the impression that Audi have invested a ton into this vehicle. So the development into the space frame body of this car, figuring out how to style the body panels properly because they're aluminum, they don't style easily. And then turning the car into a technological, high-tech machine, its own hotspot, super fast processing power everywhere. All your systems accessed through the MMI for the seats, everything, the car, everything. The Sport Adaptive Air Suspension on this, the way that it is tuned in both comfort and dynamic modes. The way that the engine revs, the way that the throttle pedal responds to your touch, the way that the steering wheel responds to both the road and your input, the ability to shape the seats to be comfortable. Everything in this car is just outstanding. Thanks for watching, everybody. A phenomenal, brilliant ride in Audi's flagship S8. I want to thank Royal Oak Audi for the opportunity, and we'll catch you all later on what will hopefully be a spectacular test drive in another car at some point in the future. Catch you later. Bye.